Okay, it's just gone 7 o'clock, so do a quick introduction and then I will hand over to our special guest tonight, Philip, Z6 PVT. So I think many will know Philip. He's sits on the council, and I've had the privilege of trying to work Philip on 160 meter during the 160 meter contests. And while Philip is talking all over South Africa, I'm struggling to get out of Gauteng. So he knows a little bit about working 160 meters, and I think he's going to share some of those knowledge and experience and tips and tricks with us tonight. And this is ahead of the top band contest, which runs from Thursday, the 4th of June to Sunday, the 7th of June. So a big thank you to Philip, Z6 PVT, for the preparation and for taking the time out tonight and to get us ready for the top band contest in June. And I think Philip has asked us to just keep our questions to the end. He has a specific Q&A section that we will get to during the presentation. At this point, I'd like to remind you, not take away anything from this Power Hour Tech Talk, but we were talking about the end-fed half wave earlier. And our next Power Hour Tech Talk at the end of May, the 27th of May, will be the end-fed half wave. And that'll be facts and myths of the end-fed half wave with Chris ZS6 GM. Right, at this time, I'd like to hand over to Philip, ZS6 PVT, our special guest for tonight, to take us through 160 meter top band. Philip, over to you.
Thank you very much, Keith, and very good evening to everybody that tuned in. Everybody interested, thank you very much. I see the 2 meter is also going, so hopefully we're going out on 2 meter. I'm not going to turn up the audio that side and audio that side. I just want a quick audio check. Is the levels okay on my side, Keith? Over to you.
Roger, coming through loud and clear. Thank you very much, Philip.
All right, thank you very much, Keith, and then let's get going. I'm going to try and keep it to keep it to a minimum. I've got a meeting after this still, and so on. I'm sure they want to use the the Zoom, but let's get stuck into it. So a very warm welcome to everybody, and on behalf of the Sandton Club, the Sandton Power Hour Tech Talk. And I'd really like to thank Sandton for affording me the time to share my passion and the club's passion with you. And really like to compliment you on the format of the Power Hour Tech Talk. It's really inspirational, and we can actually double this because it's so informative. Informative, and I think it really reaches a audience and captivates audience. Then also welcome to everybody on behalf of the Westland Amateur Radio Club. Of course, Westland Amateur Radio Club is the host and the sponsor of the top band contest. Top band contest. So that's why we've got the Westland logo in the corner. Also like to acknowledge and welcome everybody on behalf of the contest working group. The SARL contest working group has really gone quite a distance, and really has been looking and taking care of quite a lot of the contests. And you'll see that a lot of the contests evolve, and because the contest working group is really listening to everybody, and try and incorporate all the suggestions, changes into the rules, and really to make it well worth it. And then on behalf of myself, welcome, really welcome, and thank you for joining, and of course sharing this talk. So tonight we're gonna look at the 160-meter band, and this is going to be a contest guide and an inside track, and of course this is all to get to enjoy the 160-meter contest. All right, just a quick brief introduction to myself, and of course there's the celebrity selfie. I'm posing there with somebody's celebrity amplifier, so it's not it's not my amplifier, so my amplifiers don't work. No, my amplifiers do work. They just on the blink. My amplifier's got valves, so Of course, my name is Philip, Z6 PVT, and I was first licensed in 1992 at the age of 22 back in the days. And I achieved my top band certificate and the certificate 68 in February 2011. It took that long to collect all the contacts or to figure out how to collect all the contacts, and I only applied in um, February 2011, and I got certificate 68. So I'm actually quite proud of the certificate 68. I'm not sure which numbers are we at, but if you read the rules of top band certificate, all contacts from 1960 can be is considered. So if you take it then from 1916 until 2011, only 68 certificates were handed out. So you can see this is quite a scarce commodity, and makes it so much more worth the effort. Of course, after that, I worked on my WAS 100, 160 meter. Was I achieved that in June 2024, and the past couple of years I've been very active on 160. Both myself and Donnie is at a 6 DPS. So for the 160, we team up and get together and uh, try and make as many contacts as possible. And we actually learned quite a lot, and it's always been fun. Then last year, the SARL had the Centennial Marathon, and there I achieved the gold certificate. And I could, and the reason I've included this here in the introduction is the fact that if it wasn't for that Centennial, I'm sure I would have made a lot less contacts, because we did operate those special call signs, or exotic call signs, as I sometimes call them, including the SRL 100. We had special permission to operate those in the 160 last year, and of course we made quite a few contacts, and uh, you had to work the SRL 100 to get the Centennial certificate. Then there was 200. I checked the other day, and I was so surprised. I'm at the doorstep of a WAS 200. I need about another 4 contacts. So hopefully, hopefully this year I'm gonna do the WAS 200. Then it will be another 10 years to work towards the WAS 300. And of course, at the same time, I'm also here to represent West Rand Club. There's my email, and it's just z6pvt@gmail.com if there's any questions. Like I mentioned earlier to Keith, and I'll say it again, I've got a whole document pack with all the material, references, articles, diagrams, the whole lot that you can download afterwards. All right, the purpose and the overview of this presentation, of course, to help and guide you in the top end competition, the information on the contest, the purpose, time, date, frequency, all of those that you need to know. And I'll tell you why you need to know those. Then there's a couple of antenna systems we're going to look at. Some antenna designed for transmitting antennas, big or small footprint, and then also receiving antenna as an option. Of some operating tips, logging, and we're going to touch on some operating tips, accessories, and the rest. And if you see this a nice picture in the corner over here, it says short antennas for 160 meters. I really don't have this book. If you like to if you like to donate it for my birthday for 5th of July, I would love a copy of this book, but unfortunately, it's only a picture up to here. All right, so why take part in a 160 contest to start off? Uh, um, the 160 meter contest sees a concentration of activity. So once a year, there's quite a lot of activity, and this is an ideal time to work towards your certificates and awards. Because through the year, you always get some 160 meter activity. Even you won't believe it. Even in the middle of the summer, I actually quite often find people just having a conversation, and obviously they close to each other, or the next town over maybe, and they would sit and just have a chat, a casual chat on 160 in the middle of summer. But the propagation or the it's line of sight or ground wave for them. All right. This is also an ideal opportunity to give other people a chance to make contacts and to make contact with you and share your call sign with them, and then they can also work towards their certificate. That is one of the reasons when we operate 160 meter between me and Donnie, we definitely go there with the club's call sign. We try and take ZS9 HQ, ZS6 SRL, or any of those, just to spread it around and give everybody else also an opportunity. Although I've never worked ZS9 HQ on 160, everybody else do get a chance to work those as well. So, and this is also an ideal opportunity to push your knowledge of your equipment, your skill, all to a new level. Everybody, I've heard, I had people tell me before, but I switch on my radio and I talk to on 40 meters. This is not the average 40-meter QSO party. This is not any of those club contests or there's a bit of skill and it's a different angle. So it's quite an interesting band, and you'll find that the low band behavior is different to what it is on 40 meters, for instance, or even 80 meters. And if the band is really open, it's extremely open. And of course, extremely open. If it's closed, you'll just find a wall of noise. But it does change, and I've seen remarkable changes. And I mean, if you switch on your radio, you can work anywhere in the world on 10 meters on FT8 and most given days. But on 160, this is not a everyday band, and you need to put a bit of extra effort into to get there. So there's taking part in a contest. That's a very good reason to for everything to mention, and not to forget that this is a very good reason to start planning, to start constructing, and to go camping. And believe it or not, we've gone camping several times, Donnie, myself, and the whole team, and it's always turns out a lot of fun. Of course, you might need some additional equipment like a heater, but good reason or a good getaway. So, to apply for a award or a top band award, and of course there's two at play here. The first one being of course the WAS award. If you can make a WAS 100, that is definitely something to achieve. WAS 100. Or just even your general was to get to that, and then you can take the next step and try and do that on 40 meters, and try and do it on 80, try and do it on 160. So I think one of the key factors to get to a award is to start the logging in the right place. So my best suggestion is in this contest, or even in general, start logging with a logging program. And the main reason for that is you need the ADIF file. Now, the ADIF stands for Amateur Defined File, integer file. So it's formatted for to represent a logbook, and it's universal. It works on a lot of additional programs, websites, Logbook of the World, QRZ, all of those except ADI files, and it sorts out the format. And so the main name is ADI. So N1NM, a definite must. Log for OM, a definite must. You do your log, you convert it to an ADI file, and then you can export that ADI file and export it, and you can upload it to the SARL WAS program straight away. The same file you can upload to qrz.com straight away. Logbook of the World also uses the same file. So it saves you from retyping. And guaranteed, if you retype, you're going to make typos. or you're going to lose the log along the way. And that's happened to me as well. You almost said the dog will eat it, but yeah, you lose it along the way. It stays behind in the tent, or it falls in the bucky seat behind the bucky seats, and you can't find it afterwards. Or worse, even you can't read your own handwriting. So type out the log right there and then. Right there and then. As you make the contact, you type it in. Also, the 160-meter contest is not a very fast contest, so you will have more than enough time to type, even if you just type with 2 fingers. All right, so for the and the top band awards, you apply to Chark, ZS1 Juliet. And Chark has got its own checking system, and there's a little form that you fill in. There's Chark's email address. And here's a warning: if you're not a SARL member, a certificate, so the top band or the WAS certificate is going to cost you 250 Rand, 250 bucks. That was a change that was brought in a year or two ago, I think. So just be aware of that. But still, it's a achievement. It's not a everyday occurrence, especially top band. Right, then just a little bit more about the top band certificate. The top band certificate is sponsored by the SARL, of course, and it aims to encourage 160-meter QSOs in South Africa. South African stations must submit proof of having contact with at least 6 different South African call areas. So, of course, ZS1, ZS2, ZS3, all of them. And then the 6th contact can be omitted by proving any of our local countries: Botswana, Eswatini, Lesotho, Mozambique, Namibia. So if you got a free Papa Delta Alpha, which I think is Lesotho or Eswatini, then you can add it in and apply. And of course, for all the information, you go to mysrl.org.za/awards, and you'll find all the information that side. So here's a bit of history. And of course, in my opinion, a antenna is the heart of the system, and and if you can have the best ICOM radio and a wet noodle antenna, and you'll sound like a wet noodle. So the antenna is the most prominent item. So focus on the antenna. The radio will make its own way. So as you can see, it took me about 20 years to get to my top band certificate, and of course, it was greatly inspired by Jeff, ZS6 Charlie, and of course, sadly, Jeff is now a silent key, but Jeff used to nag me to be on the air, and year in and year out, and it actually started with all kinds of different antennas and experiments, and Jeff had a piece of long wire that was joined in certain places going through the trees in both the houses that he had, and he had a counterpoise and just one single counterpoise, and but he was on air every day and every night, and that 160-meter antenna of his worked. And he had a simple tuner. I've actually should have taken a photo of the tuner. It was a tuner that was built by Kif Z6 HEF, and it was just like on a piece of breadboard, capacitor and a coil and a crocodile clamp. And that's what Jeff used. And he had a lightning strike once that blew several of the fins on the capacitor off, right off, and it was a disaster. And of course, in the process, also sterilized all the electronics on the desk. But yeah, luckily he survived. And but yeah, that was his determination. He was so keen. And 160-meter contest. And I remember my shack used to be in the garage, and the contest used to be on the 20th of June, and it was so cold you had to run inside to go find some heat, and then back out again, make some contacts, back inside to find heat. Because and then the next year I said, no ways, I'm moving the shack inside the house, and I sat at the kitchen table, and I said, no, next time around we'll have a heater, and it carried on from there. And luckily the kids moved along, so I took over one of the rooms, and one of the main reasons was 160 meters being cold. Also, also things wasn't easy in the beginning for me. I had quite a lot of antennas, long wire, short wires. In my mind, you had to have a hell of a long piece of wire. And, the I think the one year I had a wire going to the neighbor's tree next door, and that worked reasonable. I made some contacts, and but of course the neighbor, after the contest, a couple of weeks after that, he insisted to remove this piece of wire. Yeah. So the next year I ran it across the road to the neighbor across the road, and I left the wire there. And um, I think the next year I carried on with the same piece of wire, and then there was quite a lightning strike, and this wire was struck in two. And after that, the neighbor cut the tree off, and he moved away. So I was lost to that. And with both the neighbors now removing their big trees. I was now condensed to my yard only. And I actually found that from the one corner, I had a palm tree, to the other corner was roughly about 25 meters. So I started constructing an inverted L, and it ran up the palm tree and across to the other corner. And yeah, I could never get this antenna tuned until one day that Keith ZS6 AGF explained. But if your wire, if the antenna is too short, in inductor, if it's too long, you put a capacitor in series. Now it doesn't make sense in my mind to put a capacitor in series, but you know what, it worked, and I made some good contacts this year. So much so, and of course, over the years, the antenna experimentation development went quite a long way. I think I eventually ended up coming second in one of the years, and that came as quite a surprise. And of course, the person to beat was Lucas, ZS6LH, and Lucas had the gold standard in antennas, a loop that he had quite a distance off the ground. And but yes, it was in those early days were a lot of fun. It was some of the coldest days of the year. On the side here, you can see this is a Transmatch tuner, and the Nano VNA, and that is outside next to the palm tree. You can see the plants in the corner, and of course radials. At one stage, the biggest thing was to roll out radials, and radials makes a hell of a difference if you want to be heard on the other side. And I've tested that by just having one radial and the earth spike, and to connect all the radials and earth spike, and it makes a significant difference, especially for somebody over a distance. So this is just a few of them. At one stage, the yard looked like a cobweb on Halloween. And at one stage, the wife was even complaining because of all these wires and cables, and every piece of wire cable became a radial. This is all scrap coax and scrap coax, but after that it grew quite a bit. And yeah, and of course also I experimented with different tuners, and uh, you know, to the point where I actually realized the wires I've been using all the time were too long, and I actually cut it back to be resonant. And then you work without a tuner, and without a tuner, less loss, less loss, and a better bandwidth as well. And you don't have to go outside to go retune. But yep, this was one of the last ones. I think this was around 2020 during COVID. And COVID was a boom year for 160. Everybody was at home. Everybody had time on their hands, and we had a hell of a lot of fun. I think that 2020 was the year that most certificates were actually issued, and I'm sure we're up to over 100 certificates. We'll get some certificate numbers later on or afterwards. Then just having a quick look at the contest itself. Now, don't let this catch you out. The contest starts. And contest starts. So if you are planning on taking part in the contest seriously to make the most amount of contacts, you need to be there from the start right to the end. And right to the end. And I know it ends 12 o'clock Sunday, and or 1 minute before 12 on Sunday. And I know, you have to go to work on Monday. So you pack up at 8 o'clock or 10 o'clock or 8 o'clock, and then you miss one or two contacts and one or two contacts. So the contest starts 1 minute past 12 on Thursday. So 1 minute past 12, I doubt if you're going to make a lot of contacts, but if you come back, if you come back Thursday morning at 5 o'clock, then you need to be on air because you will be surprised. And I tell you, it always surprises me to find the amount of people on the air at like 5 o'clock in the morning. Of course, as the sun rises, once the sun is up, then it's over skidovers. Then the band, then you don't hear anybody because the delay absorbs everything. But you need to be there early, early, early. So from 5 o'clock onwards, 5 to 7 is definitely prime time every day of the contest. So that's the one. Then the next one, uh, and it carries on and it carries on until the Sunday night. So don't pack up Sunday 8 o'clock. Try and carry on right to the end and get all of those contacts in. Frequencies. Now, in South Africa, the band goes all the way up to 2 megahertz, but you hardly find anybody at the top there. There is definitely CW some CW activity. You'll definitely find Alpha. Alpha down there, he operates CW every year. There's a couple of surprises. It also shows up from time to time. Digital, definitely there is digital, and the digital is it's definitely worth keeping an eye on. I've had some very nice digital surprises in the past. I'll show those later on. And then, of course, phone. Everybody seems to be cuddled around 1.850, somewhere there, but somewhere there. But I always try and avoid the even numbers. So rather go to 852 1852 to avoid the even number. And of course, the even numbers is where all the noise the noise hangs out as well. Exchanges are quite simple: RSQ, RST, or RS, RSQ, RST report. That's the signal and the rest of it. And then the 4 character grid square, and the log sheet scores you on the grid square. On the grid square. Um, and then to complete the log, it is again very straightforward, simple. If you do your log in any of the digital programs, you export the log and export just that section um, to an ADI file. You open the ADI file with ADI Master. ADI Master is a program. You can download it. You can search it. I've got a link for it somewhere along the line. I'll share the link with you. And then all you do is you just go and copy. You highlight the column. You copy the column and you go paste it in the Excel scoring sheet. And away you go. You send in the Excel scoring sheet. You email it to contest@srl.org.za. Alternatively, you just go to contest log upload, and that's under the contest resources on the my SARL page, and you upload the log. Once you upload the log, they send you a confirmation email, so it doesn't end up in the spam box or in the spam box. So that's the contest. If there's any more questions on the contest, we'll take them at the end. Let's have a brief and a quick look at the antenna system. Like I said before, and I'd like to repeat myself, if your antenna is a tuned up 80-meter inverted V, we're not going to hear you, unfortunately. You might hear people very close to you or stations close to you, but definitely not going to get to Durban or to Cape Town. The reason for 80-meter inverted V not working, or even if you do put it for the best tuner, is remember you need a quarter wave or a odd multiple thereof, and that's where the voltage or the energy is at a maximum. So if you take a 80-meter inverted V, that's that length. It's a short circuit. It does not radiate. It might get to resonance, but it does not get to radiation. And I'll talk more about 80-meter inverted V. So the facts of the antennas is if because it's 160 meter, you need a quarter wave, and a quarter wave is 38.58 meters. Make a note of that because that you see quite often. That is a quarter wave of 160. So now you can imagine if you've got a 160 meter inverted V, it's 80 meters in length. Now I tell you, it's a mission to keep that 80 meters in length in the air because it gets heavy. It gets heavy, and the wind also doesn't have its way with that amount of wire. So if the wire, if you make an end-fed antenna or a random wire antenna, a long wire, um, if a long wire antenna is too short, the obvious thing is you add a loading coil or a loading coil or inductor in series, and that lengthens the wire, and you just tap it or tune it until you get to resonance. But now if this long wire antenna is too long, it's too long, and this used to happen to me often. You know, you in your mind you need to have a hell of a big antenna, and then you never get you can never get it to tune properly, and capacity in series. And I promise you, it doesn't make sense, but it works. It really works. 1 year, and I'm sure it was COVID years. I had a capacitor in series, and it was just a capacitor dangling there, a nice big Johnson, and it worked. So that's something to do. Something else, if you've got existing antenna, like a web FST antenna, or doublet type of antenna, just make the legs longer. Just add on. I was looking at an article where the guy had a vertical antenna, just a straight up vertical antenna, and all he did is he had a big crocodile clamp, and right at the top of the vertical antenna, he crocodile clamped a wire on there, and the wire went zigzag around the trees, and you know, uh, that. So you use this existing infrastructure, tuned it, and he's on the air. Now, back to this famous 80-meter inverter V. A lot of people, and I hear them every year. Then you struggle to hear them because they've got their 80-meter inverted V, and they are trying to tune that, and it doesn't work. So you need to modify that 80-meter inverted V, and quite simply, what you do is the 80-meter inverted V is existing already. So what you do is the core and the braid of the cable of the PL259, you short circuit those two together. I'll show you a photo, and you add a couple of radius, you make a Marconi antenna out of it. Here's a quick table of a couple of antennas, and and I'm just going to run through them. These ones on the table, I'm going to show you the diagrams shortly. So the Morgan is a linear folded dipole. So they take a 160-meter dipole, and they fold it up, zigzag it, and at certain intervals, and it actually makes it quite compact. But of course, like a normal inverted V or a dipole, definitely very, very narrow bandwidth, and you also need to keep an eye on the height above ground. But the Morgan is definitely, if you've got a confined space, definitely a option. Easy to build. I'll show you in a minute. Then a random long wire. You can really run a random long wire, and Jeff showed and proved that. And one or two counterpoises, or radials as I call them, and then people tell me, no, counterpoise is not a radial. So, but more about that later. So a random wire, you can, where you've got space, if you've got an abandoned telephone pole all around the telephone pole, that's also fine. Then inverted L. Now, although the inverted L is, in my opinion, the most versatile antenna, it's not the gold standard. The gold standard is to have a full-size loop up, a 40-meter side loop, but that also comes with its own challenges. Um, the ideal thing for a horizontal loop is you don't need radials. It's self-contained. And the one year, Andreas, ZS6ADU, because he had a dipole for every band. He built a bazooka dipole for every band you can think of, 6 meters straight through to 160. And the one year he said, no, this is too much. He is going to put up a loop, and um, he bought 12-meter gum poles, and he's got a plot out in almost said man Bronkhorstspruit. I want to say Bronkhorstspruit. Bronkhorstspruit. He planted those gun poles, put that loop up, and yes, it really sounds fantastic on the air. ZS680U sounds fantastic on the air, and of course, you know, you can tune it to almost any band, and it still sounds fantastic. The problem with that is that loop picks up static like you won't believe. You showed me a video, and I unfortunately couldn't find the video, but but yeah, it's the pros and the cons, the pros and the cons. So that's the gold standard, is to have loop, but you need the space for it. Then the next option, and this is actually quite an option I quite like. I saw Johan Z6 JVD in the guest list, and uh, I know what Johan does is he tunes up the gutters, the balcony railing, and whatever he can to make contacts, and I quite admire that spirit and that innovative spirit. So whatever you've got, try and tune it up, make it longer, add a tuner, add some radials, even if you just run 2 or 3 radials around the corner. If at one time I took my 2 electric extensions and I rolled those ones out, took off the plug on the one side and plugged the two together to get to a 40-meter length, and that worked. So anything you got, try and tune it up or try and make it work. Even if you just make 5 contacts this time around, I promise you next time you're going to make 20 contacts, and the year thereafter you're going to make 30 contacts. So give it a try. Take my word for that. Then, of course, the famous Marconi T antenna. I'm going to tell you about that. I've also got a article that where the guy actually made a switch, and you can toggle between 80 meters or 160 meters with your existing your existing 80-meter inverted V. Right. Hopefully, I'm still going out, and almost halfway. Almost halfway. All right. So the first antenna we're looking at is a Morgan dipole. Now, I've been looking high and low for this article. I've got a scanned copy of a magazine, and this, of course, is by DJ3QX, and the magazine page is in German. But the pictures tell them 1,000 words, 1,000 words, and I've been searching high and low, and I can't find a internet version of this. And so basically, what he's done is he's got all the measurements over there, nice and metric, and he's got some PVC to space the wires, and he's got exact measurements on where to fold them back and how to fold them back, and this this folded dipole actually or linear loaded. It's linear loaded, so this actually does work. Like I say, it's a bit of a bandwidth. I think he was very generous, and in the corner, that graph showing the resonance in the corner over there, I think that's a bit on the generous side, but nevertheless, he shows 80 meters and 160 meters. So I think this could definitely be worth a build and worth a try. And I've got this in my document pack or to share. I've got all the information in there. The only thing I would do in here is add a 1-to-1 balun. That will definitely be a requirement. The next antenna, like I previously said, make it work. If you've got a 3 or 2 in your house, if you've got an abandoned telephone pole, if you've got the neighbors, anything, run a piece of cable as long as you can. Now, this article from what's the guy's name? George, I think, Golf 8 Oscar Delta Echo. Does a whole description, and he shows you exactly what to do. You get a earth spike, some radials, and again, the only thing I would do is add a 1-to-1 bifiller balun at the bottom to get rid of static, or to dissipate static. But yeah, this is definitely going to work. What he's also done is he did a bit of a loading coil at the end, and that's, I'm not sure if that's to tune it or to add some capacitance to it, but this is definitely an option. I'm sure everybody can squeeze a 12-meter a section somewhere in the yard. And uh, um, one thing about building an antenna like this, you never need to be scared of folding it back or making a zigzag or a dog leg, or just as long as you can get it in the air. And that was Jeff's antenna. It was a mess, but you know what? He was on the air, he was heard, and he made a lot of contacts. Brings me to the next one, and of course, this is the classic inverted L. And this article comes from the QST magazine of 1998. I used to stare at this picture days and days and days on end. And this is the typical the typical inverted L that we built. Uh, just our length here is a 38.85. Is it 38.85 or 80? Yeah, 38.65. Sorry, 38.65 overall length. Now, yeah, you can see quite easily. They show you have 50 foot going up and 130 foot if you translate 130 foot, that is the overall length, and the 50 foot is the height. So don't add the two together, because the antenna will never work if you add the two together. Or you won't have enough space in the yard. And of course, it runs to a tree. And of course, they've used the open feed line and the transmatch. You can put in a bailin and get a spot on frequency. You don't even need a tuner, but at the end of the day, you can put in a bailin, put in a tuner further down, or even just press tune on your radio. So tuner works fantastic. Again, one-to-one bailin, I would suggest a one-to-one bailin, and that will get rid of the static. If you've got a bifiller bailin, gets rid of the static. And yeah, just the dimensions over here is for DX, and it's a CW version of it, so it's quite low. I've built this exact one, and it ends up quite low, quite low. Right. Next up, this is quite an interesting antenna, and it comes from, is it George? No, I can't remember. Golf 3 Yankee Echo uniform. And what he does is he runs a piece of coax, he earths it this side, that side again. Put in a bailin, dude. Put in a bailin. He's got one ferrite. One ferrite's not going to do it for 160, but put a bailin over there. And then he's got this section, he calls it a safety insulator. This safety insulator is a capacitor in disguise. So this whole antenna's already got a built-in LC tuner. There's the capacitor section over there, where 1.5 meters RG58, and only the shield is picked up on the one side. So that forms a capacitor, adds a bit of a picofarad or two in there, and then he's got about 15 turns of 15 turns. And he's got two crocodile clamps, and you can actually go and take different tappings of this. And of course, the rest of the wire is just a 30-meter length of 30-meter length of anything. And this is the tuner, so you can actually go and pick different. You can tune it to this desired frequency. Built-in tuner. I thought that was quite novel. I've built this, by the way, and it does work. All right, so remember that. 80-meter inverted V that I said needs some modification. I came across this article, and what this gentleman does is he builds a switch. So you take your 80-meter inverted V, bazooka, anything 80-meter, and you plug it into the box and you toggle the switch. And of course, also to the box, you add a couple of radials, and then radials, and then of course the coax back to the radio or back to the tuner. And then by toggling the switch, you can either switch this antenna to operate 160 meters or 80 meters. And I think that's quite a novel idea looking at it. So I've included this article in my document pack. And if you look at the picture that just zoomed in here, you can see there's June 2020. And that's when I presented a tech talk on 160. That was during COVID days, and that was my suggestion for 80-meter bazooka. You short circuit the inner and the outer. You make a T antenna out of it, or a Marconi antenna, and you add a LC tuner there, couple of radios, and you are on the air. So let's get to the next burning question, and that's radials or counterpoise. Just with the previous presentation, I had more than one person telling me, no, a counterpoise is not a radial, and a radial is not a counterpoise. it's like that. So at the end of the day, so I asked her what's the difference, and they all told me, but a radial is buried in the ground, and a counterpoise lies on top of the ground. So I really don't know the difference. It sounds to me like exactly the same thing. Although, in my opinion, a radial is something, if you've got a quarter wave, the quarter wave, the radials drooping down, that's radials. You don't call those counterpoises, but nevertheless. Who am I to argue the counterpoise radial saga? So, um, of course, in this photo I found on the internet, I was just intrigued. I counted all of those. I counted all of those, and there's 96 of them. But yeah, it's quite a few. Um, 96 or 72. Oh, no, I can't remember. But never mind. Never mind. There's quite a few radials, and when it comes to the radios, if you do a end-fed antenna, a vertical antenna, inverted L, any of those antennas, the efficiency is so much better, and over a long distance, you'll definitely get hurt compared to somebody that's try and tuned up a 80-meter inverted V. Efficiency is the name of the game. Because of the ground resistance, there is a article in my document pack where the guy goes at great lengths, scientific lengths, to describe, calculate, and assess the ground resistance. And I'm definitely not going to do that. But what I want to say is you don't have control over what is in the ground or how conductive your Karoo landscape is. What you do have control over is the amount of radials you put out. And of course, if you can permanently install them, that's even better. At the Western Club, we buried a couple of radials, and it was just twisted pair buried, and because they are buried, they insulated, but they buried, and because they buried, they are extremely effective. So we're getting very good results from the Western Club's inverted L. So, right, how long does these radials or counterpoises need to be? And of course, you need at least 4 quarter wave lengths. Now, quarter wave for 160, 40 meters. But if you're really pressed for space, and you can lay them out, and again, you can zigzag them, you can dogleg them, you can wrap them, double back, switch back, zigzag them, anything you need to do to make them fit. Run them all around and around, it will work. So, or you can actually reduce the size, and instead of having 1 quarter wave, you need 2/8 of a wavelength. Now, eighth of a wavelength, 20 meters. That's a half of a quarter, is an eighth, and two 20-meter lengths. So you'll need 4 or 8 of those 20-meter lengths would be equal to 4 40-meter lengths, and that will give you enough ground plane to get out. Of course, if you take away the ground plane, different story. Now over here they've got a loading coil. You can see it's quite a significant amount of turns over there. I don't know the band of this, but you can see it's a straight up aluminium pole, and it's isolated. And I think this guy will definitely make a lot of contact. So I would say at least 4 radials. If you can afford 4 radials, for sure, definitely. It doesn't have to be fantastic wire. Just buy a roll of panel wire, a 0.5 square panel, or even 0.2 square panel. Donnie and myself have found a place that sells Cat 5, but very cheap, and a 300-meter roll. And you roll out those Cat 5, make radials with them, and because there's so many cores inside, it makes quite the decent radials. Because remember now, you've got 8 cores inside a Cat 5, and you lie those out. And then after the contest or after the winter, you roll them up, store them in the garage, and they can come out again next winter. So that's a suggestion. But also, if you've got a fence, if you've got a wire fence or a chain link fence or any of those, or a palisade fence, incorporate it, earth the fence, and then the fence can also be part of the antenna system additional radials or ground plane or counterpoise. So how many radials? As many as your wife allows. That was the rule last year. Put out as many up to the point where your wife complains, and then you just add another five more, and then you are sorted. So radials definitely plays a significant role. A significant role, even if it looks like Halloween in July or June. For you Halloween in June, that's also fine. You can always roll them up afterwards. That's what I used to do, roll them up afterwards and store them nicely for next year or for next time around. Let's have a quick look at some antenna systems. So here's a couple of facts about antenna, and this is something that in our station is a key factor. And the most interesting things appear on the receive antenna, and we've had this before where you don't hear the person on the normal transmitter antenna at all, and I mean we've got a reasonably moderate, efficient inverted L, perfectly matched, no tuner, 100% right where it should be. And guess what? You don't hear the person on that antenna, but you hear them on the receive antenna. Now, how does that work? At one stage, we had two receive antennas going opposite, supposed to be opposite directions, and you hear him on the one, but you don't hear him on the other one. Or the following evening, you hear him on the opposite receive antenna. So how does that work? And he's working from the same QTH. So receive antenna, that's a definite a must, I would say, for anybody serious on 160. And here's a couple of the facts. So the receive antenna might not improve the receive signal. The ideal is to get the signal out of the noise. So you improve your signal to noise ratio. Signal to noise ratio. You might not hear him from the main antenna. It might be in the noise, but if you put in the receive antenna, the noise is subdued, and you can actually then hear what the person is saying on the other side. Receive antenna does not need to be resonant. Don't go and tune and trim it, or it just needs to be, in most cases, just be a piece of wire as much as you can afford or as much as you can save. Save. That is it. There's a couple of, and the receive antenna doesn't have to be complicated. And it even works flat on the ground. A receive antenna works a hell of a lot better at low frequency, low bands. Definitely benefits 80 and 160, definitely. 40 meters, not as much. In high bands, you must probably hear them better on your Yagi than you would hear them on a piece of wire lying on the ground. But at the low bands, a lot of the signal is ground related, or you hear him even if it's lying on the ground. So what you can also do is use a receive antenna to null the noise. For instance, if you've got a magnetic loop, you turn it so until the noise disappear, and hopefully then again you've achieved a better signal to noise ratio. Here's a couple of antennas you can use for receive. So what I do for especially in a 180 meter contest, I've got my my 80 meter bazooka, and you just lie the 80-meter bazooka flat on the ground. You roll it out flat on the ground, and this is quite a cheap, easy, temporary measure. Once you finish, you roll up your 80-meter bazooka and you go home, and that's a receiving antenna. It works quite well on other bands as well, and because it's lying loose on the ground, you can actually turn it and try and get if you know of something noisy or a direction, you can null out a direction by moving the bazooka around. Then there's a loop on the ground, very cheap, easy. The only thing you need there is a transformer, a coupling transformer. 20 meters aside is 20 meters aside loop is big enough, and it works. That definitely reduces the noise significantly, and you do make a couple of contacts. There's also a bog, beverage on the ground, and that beverage on the ground, if you run about 80-meter plus, it definitely works in it, but it favors a direction. So you actually need four of them, ideally, or at least two of them, or if you can have the next one, which is a reversible beverage, that works extremely efficient. But and you can reverse the direction. But for that, you'll need some switch gear, and it also needs to be off the ground to be a beverage. And then one of my favorites here, and this year I've already started construction, is a magnetic loop, and it doesn't have to be a hell of a magnetic loop. Um, doesn't have to be a hell of a magnetic loop. And the big thing about the magnetic loop is you can turn it. You need a rotate, of course, but you can actually turn it and away from the noise. And as you turn it, you can actually hear the noise changes. So, and it's actually quite compact, relevant. So let's have a look at a couple of the diagrams. Of course, over here, this is the famous match wind your own transformer, and you'll find the information there at the www.banglog.com. I've got the link below. Here's a loop on the ground. There's a couple of orientations. So again, if you want to work north-south, that could be a good orientation. If you've got two of them, why not? And then why not? And you'll be surprised that having two next to each other like that does make a difference if you can switch and toggle between them. Beverage on the ground. You can actually use exactly the same transformer couple as you use for the loop on the ground, the 4-to-1 little transformer with the binocular toroid. And you need a terminator resistor on the other side. So, and the terminator resistor, you could just add a couple together, and with an earth spike. And this, believe me, as simple as it seems, it does work. And if you've got two of them, one going each way, then you're really sorted. Here's the magnetic loop now. This comes from Tango Alpha 7 Oscar Mike. And if you go to that website, you get bombarded by all adverts, 20,000 of them. But I've got more than one of these articles. And what he's done here is used PVC. And he's got the 1.5 meter side. And he's just used TV coax, 75 ohm coax. Got two capacitors and a little one-to-one balun. You could just wind around any small little core. Done. It is really so easy and simple. You take this outside, put it against the wall, or stand it up with the garden umbrella stand, and just turn it every so often, and you'll be amazed. You'll be amazed, and it's quite compact. When you finish, fold it up, keep it for the next contest, or keep it for the 80-meter club contest. Right, here's a couple of context tips. Almost an hour, a couple of minutes before the hour is up. But so let's run through these ones quickly, and you can see there's our secret weapon. We've got this heater, the SCADAC heater, and it goes with to all the 160 expeditions that we have, and that keeps us going. Without that, you can't do 160. So that's a secret weapon. Here's a couple of tips for the contest specifically. So you start operating as early as possible in the evenings, 5 o'clock onwards, just before sunset. The radio must be on, and you'll find that you make contacts with everybody close by. And as the evening progresses, the contacts go further and further. And that, of course, as the delay dissipates, you get delay dissipates, then you get to talk a lot further. There's unlike 40 meters and 80 meters, the delay do affect 160, but it's not quite the same. I think quite a lot of the propagation is also ground wave, and you'll be amazed sometimes to what you get. So you start as early as possible as the sunset, and you are back the next morning again before the sun rises. You need to get in at least 2 or 3 hours, and that's where you'll find most of the activity. If you've got noise, guaranteed you will have some noise. Take your little AM radio, little AM portable radio, even those small plastic ones you buy at the China Mall. Get one of those, and you put some batteries in it, you start walking around, and I'll tell you, you'll be surprised the amount of things you can sniff out. Anything from energy saver, cheap, no-name pick and pay globes to wireless chargers and a lot. If you walk past it, you'll definitely know that that is the thing making the noise. LED floodlights, you shoot them with the kitty because those are the noise generators, hands down. Um, Solar and inverters. So during the contest, just switch them off. Switch them off. You can always switch them on later. what we usually do when we go camping is in the day, batteries charge at night, no inverters, no sun panels, no nothing. We're just running off battery, and that works out quite well usually. DSTV, slow scan CCTV, those things make a hell of a racket, né? And it's the power supply. DSTV, that little wall wart power supply that feeds the DSTV, that feeds the LNB. Sure, I'll tell you, the previous house, 6 o'clock in the morning, when the kit switches on that DSTV, you know about it. So you just unplug those ones during the contest. You can plug them in again afterwards. Wireless cell phone chargers. Oh, yeah, what a disaster. The neighbor lady had one, and if you walk past a unit, you can actually hear it's right here next to the wall, next to the bed, that wireless thing. Also, these open frame meanwhile supplies now, or meanwhile, or switch mode power supplies. Now, Hans, Kapitein used to sell those, and I've got one over here. And it's great. It works fantastic. How not on 160? That thing adds birdies that you know, and you won't believe it because you use it for all the other bands. But yes, when it comes to 160, it's a disaster. Don't be shy to call CQ. Also, try and rotate between the modes. In this contest, CW, SSB, CW, SSB, and any digital mode, whatever catches your eye. Keep your eye on the spectrum. If you see something pop up, go and work him. Get an antenna switch. This is definitely a must. If you've got a listening antenna, to toggle between the listening antennas. The more listening antennas, the better. Use headphones. Definite must. Headphones, especially if there's somebody far away or weak, and ask him politely. Again, please. Again, say again. Call again. Repeat slowly. All of those. Already harped on this. N1NM or log4OM digital logging. Then operate from an out of town location. Try and escape the noise because Eskom generated such a racket by not by load shed. Everybody's now got solar. So operate out of town. Like I said, we had a couple of DX expeditions, or not DX expeditions, 160 expeditions, and we've been to the Northern Cape, and we've been to Oranieville a couple of times, and it really helps a hell of a lot to get out of town and go camping, go fishing, all of those. Be on the air every evening, every morning. If you miss a day, you fall behind. So sometimes people come up in a contest and you don't hear them again. They only come up once. If you hear somebody work him straight away, the one year I heard Chark, ZS1 Juliet, ne? Chark. And I thought, nah, I've worked him already. But meanwhile, I worked him on his ZS6 call sign, and he came up with his ZS1 call sign, and I didn't work him, and there I lost. Well, no, I didn't lose, but I came second. Donnie came first, and we were sitting right next to each other, operating, and because I ignored that one, and I think the other one that I also missed out on was Carl, because I said, nah, Carl is so weak, I'll work him tomorrow, and he never came back. So, yep, try and work them while you can. Um, Motivate and invite some participants. That's always the more the merrier. Ask your club to maybe start a 160-meter interest group. That's a good one. And here's the secret weapon. Get a heater for the shack. So no excuses. Get a heater for the shack. Let me quickly show you this. This is just a screenshot I took from a DX cluster. And this was the DX cluster filter. Oh no. DX cluster filter, and you can see over there on the 6th of April, there was 160-meter activity, and Dick Z6BUN, he was over there, he was operating, and then further down there's um, I think it's Dieter in Windhoek, and he's a big contester. He puts out a good signal as well. And then below there's um, uh, man, I actually wrote these down in the notes, and I can't find the notes. Oh, yes, yes, yes. J51 Alpha, Guinea Bissau. That was a D expedition. Now, if you can work a D expedition, I've worked a couple of D expeditions on 160 already, and those guys, there's not a lot of activity on 160, so and they've got a hell of a good antennas, so hell of a good antennas, so they will definitely hear and work you, and that's that's quite something to chase is a 160s. Right, the references. Here's some references, and these are most of the guys I spoke about. Um, this Jim Brown, he's got a hell of an article on small lots, but he goes into fine detail on the ground resistance and the rest. Um, I've got all of these documents or articles in the document pack. The same story for the receive antennas. This is where I found these receive antennas. Receive antennas. And then questions and answers. Now, I've started off with a couple of question and answers, and these are the common ones. And it's usually where must you tune your antenna? What's the best frequency? The best frequency is um, 1.850 megahertz. That's where everybody hangs out. Of course, if you look at it, the CW portion, digital portion, just around the corner. So um, phone anywhere 1.844 up to 2, but try and aim for there, and then right in the center of the activity. And people ask how long must the inverted L be? 38.5. 38.5, that's a good length. You make it a little bit longer, just fold it back like always. How many radials? As many as your wife allows. If you can roll out 32, please do that. Please do that. The more radials, the better you'll come across or be heard over a distance, because you'll lower the earth resistance. How long is the radials? Of course, quarter wave or 1/8 of a wavelength, so 40 meters, 20 meters. I've got a combination of both. Between me and Donnie, we've got combinations of both of those, and whatever else is lying around also becomes a radial, right? So how many radials? As many as your wife allows, right? And then the conclusion success is the first and the second, the first and the last QSO of the contest, and all the fun things that happens in between. So if you take part in a contest, then you've been successful. So enjoy the 160-meter contest. Remember, radius 32, also known as counterpoises for all the everybody's going to tell me it's not a radial, it's a counterpoise. And let me again emphasize, it's really fun and rewarding to participate in the 160-meter contest, and we'll be keeping out a keen ear for you. So on behalf of the Westland Club, thank you very much. Questions, answers. Anybody, questions and answers? Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Philip, just from my side for the presentation. I think my big issue is radials. I'm too lazy to put out radials, and then I don't get out. So I've got to do something different this year. That receive antenna, that sounds pretty fascinating, because operating from the shack, lots of noise, but you also gave us some snippets on how to sniff out that noise and maybe eliminate it. So maybe I need a caddy in my back pocket here. Hi, hi. And and then you also gave us some tips on maybe using Cat5 cable and all those other little pieces of cable we got running around the shack to use for those radials. Is there anybody else on the channel that would like to share their experiences or their frustrations and all their successes with 160 meters? Okay, nothing heard. Then anybody else got questions for Philip? As you can see, Philip has done this many, many times. He's very accomplished on 160 meters. So now's the time to ask him your questions. Please go ahead. Just unmute and go ahead.
Keith, if I may, in anticipation of the questions, like I said, the Cat 5, I came across a place that sells a surplus Cat 5, and if I'm not mistaken, well, it comes in a 300-meter roll, and it's got a black sheath on it, so it's fairly UV resistant. The gray stuff works extremely well, but if you leave it outside after 3 years, the gray plastic falls off. This is black stuff, so it can stay outside. But it's just standard solid core Cat 5. And if you look at the cost wise, it's less than a rand a meter almost, or rand a meter plus VAT, so it's actually a very, very economical way of doing the radials, So if anybody's interested, just let me know. I can hook you up. You know, no pun intended. Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
thank you for that, Philip. Yeah, it's a quick way of getting a lot of radials out there as well.
Mm.
And, I mean, even if
Uh,
it deteriorates, it's still got lots of the inner wires that you
yeah.
can. So I was just having a chat on the side, and I was asked what I use, and I was using a 9 to 1 long wire. But
Mhm.
as you know, Philip, with very limited success, I could hear the strong stations like ZS6LH and yourself, but you guys were chatting away to Port Elizabeth, and I could hear them, but they couldn't hear me. So
Mm.
that was my problem with that the 9 to 1 long wire.
Yeah, it's all in the efficiency, and the rules are slightly different when it comes to low band, and that's what makes it interesting. It's you would think all bands are the same, but when it comes to the low bands, it's different. You you have to get to know the rules. But yeah, it's all about efficiency at the end of the day, and the radio's going to make a very, very big difference. I've actually got a 9 to 1 infed antenna like that, and I roll it out on the grass, and I actually found that thing is directional in the long direction. So you need two of them. You can use it for listening antenna next time. Yeah, if you roll it out on the grass. So there we go. But okay, right, Keith, like I said, I've got a document pack. Anybody's welcome to contact me. It's my call sign, z6pvt@gmail.com. Or otherwise, I'll share the links and so on. And then I usually leave the the share link, and you can just download all the documents and have a look at it and decide for yourself. But we're really seeing forward to hearing everybody on the air this year. And I haven't got all the call signs as yet, but you can be sure that we're definitely going to have a couple of exotic calls, including ZS9 HQ and those. We'll try and the Westland Club will also definitely be on, to give you a extra call if you need that. But thank you very much for the opportunity, and again, thank you very much to the Sandton Club and for this platform and for sharing it and really bringing it to the generating interest and sharing interest and the passion we have for this great hobby. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Philip, from ourselves. I mean, it's the Sandton Club does this for the entire community of amateurs. It's not for the Sandton Club. We just uh, hosting it. So thank you very much for everyone that joined us this evening. And a very big thank you to yourself, Philip, for taking the time out of your diary, preparing this for us, putting that pack together, and we will distribute the pack later. Mark is also, we've got the recording as well, and we will publish the recording. So if you've missed one of the links of the ideas and you want to review certain of the tips and tricks, you will have that published as well, and that will be done in the next few days for everybody as well. Then just a reminder, on the 27th of May is our next Power Hour Tech Talk, and that'll be on the NFED half wave. And I haven't tried extending my NFED half wave to 160 meters, Philip, but that could be interesting as well. We'll have to see how that can go. But thank you everyone for joining us this evening, and enjoy the evening further. This
Seven
is
three.
7-3 from Z6HI.